Howdy gang, and welcome back to the Bad Players DPS guide to Mogu'shan Vaults LFR. Right now we're going to be covering the Feng the Accursed encounter, which is actually one of the more fun encounters early on in the LFR, because there are actually mechanics you can't totally ignore, because they can actually lead to your death or to, in worst case scenario, wiping the raid. So that's kind of cool. It's a 3-phase encounter, and each phase has something you have to deal with. In the first phase, the epicenter is actually a very dangerous move, and you have to make sure you take steps not to hurt yourself or not to get killed during that. In the second phase, the big ones are the wildfire sparks, which occasionally will spawn on top of you, and you will have to deal with them, and draw a flame, which you have to watch out for. That can actually lead to usually your own death only. And then finally, in the third phase, there's actually 2 things that can be really dangerous. Arcane Resonance, which can actually wipe the raid if you don't make sure that you get away from the group, and Arcane Velocity, which will generally only kill you. But either way, all 3 phases are something really interesting to deal with, and you will see how they all come into play. I will actually go through each one as we enter each phase in the encounter, so that you can actually see the practical effects it has on a DPS player. Alright, we will be joining this encounter in just a moment. So here we go with phase 1 of the encounter. As you see, Feng will move over to the other side of the room to his position for phase 1. Now as melee, of course, I'm going to be stacking on him the whole way anyways. The first challenge you have to face is epicenter, as I was saying, and this one can be dangerous, can be dealt with in 2 ways. If you're range, you can actually just run away, which works quite fine on LFR, although in most cases they're using this nullification barrier here that the tanks steal, and it's actually just makes the epicenter completely useless anyways. So I just recommend, and what I'm going to do, especially as a melee DPS, I'm just going to move in and stack with the rest of the group during epicenter. And also I can pop my own little barrier that DKs have. So yeah, for melee, obviously we just stay stacked on him, because the epicenters will typically be encountered by a nullification barrier. If you are range, as I mentioned, you can choose to run away. Although I found a lot of groups on the regular version are stacking and using nullification barrier anyways. So if you're planning going on to regular raiding on this encounter, I just recommend just stacking in with the group and using the nullification barrier. This phase lasts for the first third of the fight. As you'll watch, his energy will go down to roughly a third of his energy gone, and then he will move on to the second area, just over there. Every epicenter on the LFR, they can usually pop a nullification barrier, unlike on regular. And so just you're always safe way is always just stay stacked with the group and be prepared to go under the nullification barrier when epicenter hits. Okay, just skipped ahead a little bit there, getting close to the end of the first phase. And there he goes on to the second platform. The 2 abilities to deal with in the second phase, and once again melee stay stacked, range generally will shoot from the middle, is the sparks, which can pop on you every now and again. And if they do, there we go, move over to the side where you're not going to hurt anybody, and just wait for a second until the fire appears, and then move back and join the rest of the group. Now the challenge with the sparks is, when he does his next ability, Draw a Flame, he's actually going to pull those sparks into him, and if you're in the way of those sparks being pulled into the boss, they will actually go through you, and they hurt quite a bit. So I highly recommend not being between him and the flame, the fire of sparks. As you can see, some of the players here are even worse bad players than we are, and are actually letting the spark be right in the middle of where the boss is, which is really dumb, because then we all take damage from them. So don't do that. If you get spark, move off to the side, lay down the sparks out of the way where nobody can be hurt by them. Hey, there goes the guy. He's smart. He's going to lay it down off to the side where no one gets hurt by it. Once again, this phase lasts through the second third of his health, and we're almost done here again. And then he'll move on to the third phase, where we will deal with the last 2 abilities. Okay, second, draw a flame, get out of the way, let the fire pull into them. Don't be in the way of those flames, and you will be fine. Now we're about to start the third phase here, and the third phase has two really dangerous abilities. If you get Arcane Resonance on you, and as we all bad players know, you were using DBM, it will tell you, move away from the group so that the Arcane Resonance doesn't hurt anybody. And stay there until you see the next to his other dangerous ability, Arcane Velocity. Arcane Velocity, all players want to stack on the boss for about 3 seconds. There it is, Arcane Velocity. Stack on the boss. Usually Nullification Barrier will be used again at this point, and nobody gets hurt. But after about 3 seconds, you want to move away because someone's going to get Arcane Resonance and will start to hurt you. So, and if it's you, obviously you want to get away regardless. So range, once again, once the Arcane Velocity is done, go ahead and move back to a nice neutral position. And do your DPS. Melee, of course, will stay stacked on the boss generally the whole time. At most, you're probably going to have to deal with 2 Arcane Velocities. There's our second one. Stack in on the boss, and nobody gets hurt. Count about 3 seconds, and then move out. Because once again, someone's going to get Arcane Resonance, and you don't want to get hurt by that. Oh, and there, a couple of people have it. I'm going to move back in on the boss, and we can finish him off, most likely, before the next Arcane Velocity. If not, no big deal. Because we're just going to keep rinsing and repeating until he's dead at this point, because phase 3 lasts till Feng dies. Arcane Velocity number 3, stack it on the boss. If you want, you can use your cooldowns, because they're quite useful. I'm going to use my little barrier here that I have to protect me and the rest of the game. And then once again, out of the group for a few seconds to make sure Arcane Resonance is handled well. And as a melee, I'm going to go back in, and this time it looks like we're going to finish him off. And there we are, an effective kill of Feng the Accursed. So there we go, thanks a lot. You've been watching the Bad Players DPS guide to Feng the Accursed, the second boss in LFR Mogu'shan Vaults. One more encounter to go in the first half, and we will be on to the second half, I guess. My name is Rialthus Killdog, Bad Player 03, and thanks for watching the Feng the Accursed guide for this encounter. We'll see you soon.